Hi, I can't tell if it started yet. Oh, here we go. Hi, this is Sally Flashberger from the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities, and it's Living Well Wednesday, and we're really excited to have another guest speaker with us today. We're joined by Peter Leidy, and Peter's here today to kind of kick off our new year and talk about ways that we can um, think about staying calm in this time of COVID and everything that's happening in our country. And so he's gonna talk to us about some great strategies and help us through. If you're on Facebook or on the Zoom, post any comments, questions in the chat for Peter, and we'll turn it over to Peter and get started.
Here we go.
You're muted.
Unmuted now. Well, okay. So, hi everybody. I'm coming to you live from Ann Arbor, Michigan. Did anybody watch the Badgers play the Wolverines last night? I went to Michigan, so I root for Michigan when they're playing the Badgers, but I root for the Badgers when they're playing other teams. And that was what we would call a blowout last night. But I'm here, I watched it with my mom, and that's why I'm here in Michigan. I'm visiting my mom, who has her own take. She wasn't really ready to be like an additional guest speaker with me. I mean, I didn't push it too hard, but she's been around on this planet for 93.5 years, and she has learned a thing or two about living well and about, self-care and some of the things that we're going to talk about today. So I am with her, and I pretty recently got this invitation to be part of Living Well Wednesday with you all. And it sounds like it sounds like I'm going to take it away now and like do this. But I'm not really going to do anything. I'm going to share, I'll share a few things that I've learned. This is a topic, by the way, that not only has it been a really strong interest of mine for the past, well, let's just say 10, 12 years, but it's also been on my mind a lot lately, partly because of what Sally mentioned in her introduction about just the stuff that we're all very, very well aware of about what's going on in our world right now and what's going on, and by world, I mean literally our world, but also our individual worlds of our own lives and our families' lives and the lives of our communities. And it's hard to even know how to really talk about all the stuff that's going on right now. But I think what we do know is that there's maybe more reason now than many of us are accustomed to think about the importance of how do we take care of ourselves and how do we take care of the people around us that we love and care about. Because, we're experiencing higher than normal, I should say, and usual levels of anxiety and stress and depression and substance abuse and all kinds of things. And so how do we think about this, what's turned out to be a very pertinent topic of what you all are doing on a pretty regular basis here with Living Well, thinking about how do we take care of ourselves have to do with living well. So it would be really helpful for me if I think we have this technology to hear from some of you either in the chat what's the best way, Sally, I guess, for hearing folks that are maybe on Facebook paying attention with what we're talking about here and following us that way versus Zoom? Can we get like a little sprinkling of like, what are people on this call thinking about when it comes to self-care?
We can do a little sprinkling of both if people want to put something in the chat, but we can also hear from people if they, have ideas, or that's totally fine. Just remember to unmute yourselves and to turn on your camera if you're going to be speaking. That's usually the best way to go about it. So
yeah. So just real broad question, how are any of you that would be willing to chime in here? How are you thinking about like these days and taking care of yourself, doing what you need to do to feel better or to feel okay with just how the world is, but also just how our regular lives are anyway, even if we didn't have all of the drama that's going on, in addition to whatever normal is. Um, how do you take care of yourself, and how do you take care of people that you care about and love?
And I'm happy to go first, maybe to,
Yeah.
talk about that. I definitely have tried to, I kind of made that commitment to myself at the beginning of the year to try some different things that help me take my focus away from maybe like social media or the news. And so trying to do some reading in the morning that, that I'm trying to read so many pages a morning or get in some reading. And then also, that increased exercise, but maybe
Mhm.
outside, trying to not just in my basement with my weights, but trying to figure out a way to, even in the cold weather, get outside more often. Cause I think that's, we can get stuck in our homes. So that's kind of how I've been
Right.
dealing with it. Not sure any who else might want to make a comment.
Hmm,
I
can
saw
hear you.
something from Amy in the chat saying focusing on self-awareness, walking in the morning, listening to podcasts.
I go to mass every morning. Trying to focus. My brother just had a kidney transplant and getting out of ICU today, and um, I guess he's doing good. My brother gave me a live kidney, and so I try to focus on going to church every morning and trying to hand it over to God and just realizing it's not my own problem, but I have to try to give it to God and try to leave it there.
Hmm. Great. Thank you.
Yep.
And we're hearing from Ramsey saying, I'm trying to breathe deep and help others.
Yep.
Two
There's
really
some
good
there's some
ideas.
people in the chat on Facebook. Wendy says that she's taking a walk outside every day, no matter what the weather. So I think that
Nice.
I kudos to someone who's willing to do that no matter what the weather, because I'm not having that same success.
It definitely helps for any of us who live in Wisconsin, which I'm guessing is most of us that are, tuning in here. Um, it helps if we like winter, just because we have a fair amount of it, and it's nice to celebrate that if we can help ourselves along there and bundle up.
Peter, I'm so
Speak.
proud of you taking care of your mom. I'm so proud of you. A lot of families don't care about their loved ones, so I give you lots of credit,
Oh,
Peter. And
well, thank you.
all the glory to God for what you're doing is incredible.
Well, thank you. I have a very small part in the whole picture here with her. My mom has a lot of help and is I'm I'm upstairs in the house that I grew up in, where my mom still lives, and the room I'm in happens to be the one that has the best kind of internet connection. So it's the most surefire sort of Zoom location in this house. And I mean, I'm looking out the window at the woods that I grew up playing in, and my mom took care of five of us for a lot of years. And so
Wow.
now the five of us are doing anything that we can to help her. This, speaking of living well with my mom, a part of that is, can you guys help me live in this house as long as possible? In other words, really that something I think a lot of us who are on this call probably understand and value the idea of living life as much as possible on our own terms. And with my mom, she's very comfortable that is, not just her, but her kind of collectively with our family, and trying to make decisions that are as helpful as we can for her quality of life. And yeah, it's not always easy, but it's sure a great thing to see her be able to live in this house that we all love a lot. So Thank you
Yeah.
for saying that.
Well, you're welcome. You're special, Peter. And my mom's 82 and gonna sell her house in Arizona, but no other of her kids really love my mom or really want anything to do with her, and that's sad. And
Mm,
we had to keep her from coming home to see my brother, but who knows how many more years we're gonna have my mom. You know,
right.
and lost my dad 25 years ago in October, and like I said, it's hard to take care of myself right now because I'm taking care of everybody else. So
Mm,
it's been
yep.
pure stress, and my family all, when they all turned their back on me. So kind of living life alone. So
Well, we are glad that you are here with us today.
well, thank you, Peter. Thank you. I
And
appreciate it.
I don't know if I should have asked my mom's permission before even thinking about this. I'm not sure if I can share my screen right now. I can't. But Sally, if you have a way of letting me share my screen, I just wanted to. I know my mom would be fine with this, and it just kind of came up spontaneously because here I am, not even thinking that I was going to even mention my mom today on this on this call. But let's
Yeah.
try
It'd
this.
be good to share now.
Yeah, I'm just gonna share this this photo. Can you see this?
Aw.
So that's I took that picture yesterday, and the reason that so you guys can see this, right?
Yep.
It's my mom.
Aw. She
Okay.
looks like you.
She I'm getting, here we go. I'm getting this message I'm getting the message that kind of says, your internet connection is a little sketchy right now.
Yep.
Yeah, I
I
think
think it's
when
because I
you
was sharing
shared the
that.
photo.
But if you can hear me okay.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah. Anyway, my mom, my wife just retired last week from her job as a nurse at UW Hospital and Clinics, actually at American Family Children's Hospital. And so we had a Zoom retirement party for her, which of course had to involve, some of these glasses that you put on and it says retired. And so I brought a pair of those, and because I thought my mom might like to model them, and she did. And she reminded us that she retired a long time ago.
Oh.
And but I had to take that picture actually for my wife Betsy. But now that we're talking about my mom and it was right here, I just had to show you guys. So anyway, thank you for those, the contributions. Oh, thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I agree. She's got fabulous energy. She really does.
How is her memory, Peter? How is her memory?
Her memory is really good. She was just saying to me this morning that she was looking through some cards, kind of trying to organize some cards that she's either writing for family members or cards that are in the kind of a pile of things that she received around the holidays. And at one point she had to ask me who, it had a first name and a last initial. And, so she said, I'm trying to think of who this is. And, it's one of her grandkids, but because it didn't have the last name, it just had the first name and the last initial, that I think threw her off a little bit. And that's a little different than probably it would have been, a few years ago for her. But boy, overall, for her, it's more kind of a question of her mobility and her just changing kind of her physical abilities changing as opposed to her memory and stuff like that. So, but yeah,
well, I'm proud of you, Peter. Seriously, I'm proud of you. It's because nobody knows how long we're gonna have our parents. Nobody knows.
That's right.
I mean,
we celebrate every day. I mean,
Yep.
we in whatever way we can, we appreciate that every day. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I guess I'll, and please, along the way here, anybody that has other comments for the chat or for unmuting yourself and just joining in, just a couple of other things that come to mind for me, one thing that's just, I always have found interesting about this, if we think of like the overall topic of self-care and what does that mean? Because it kind of means different things to a lot of us. I mean, how do we take care of ourselves? And, I've had my share of days where I felt like, taking care of myself was stopping at Taco Bell on the way home. I mean, it's not the healthiest food. Okay. I'm just saying I do have a little weakness, but every once in a while something will happen where it's like right now, like in the next 4 minutes or 12 minutes or 30 seconds, I would feel really good if I just got some junk food. The problem is you can't really do that too often. And because it becomes, instead of living well, it kind of becomes like, I'm not really living that well right now. So we sort of have to ourselves pay attention to these kind of things and also count on those around us to maybe sometimes remind us gently that 7 helpings of your favorite dessert is okay once in a while, but maybe not every day. So when I think of this, and again, right now the timing of this is just I'm part of me is thinking, I was so lucky to grow up in the woods, like playing out there. And before we had much in the way of any kind of video games. And we spent a lot of time outside, and I think a lot of people find this, and I'll ask a couple of specific things just to see if anybody wants to weigh in on these. Because this is definitely true for me. And so I'm wondering for some of the rest of you, what about connecting with nature? What about connecting with the outside world? What does that do for any of you? Or I guess, how do you go about doing that yourself or helping other people do it?
I
We've talked.
definitely think that that's a really important part of my life is being outside. And again, no matter what the season is. And I recently at Christmas got snowshoes
Yes.
to add into my repertoire of things to keep me outside in the winter. I'm lucky enough in the summer, I do have a pool, so things are good. But I do think that, I think that often I think I'm lucky because I have the ability to get out and do that. So, like my son with a disability, physically, he doesn't have the same ability to get out into nature like that.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, is always a difficult proposition of how to safely include him in something as an outdoor activity, which would not be his preferred due to kind of his disability. And so I do think that is always an interesting question when thinking about someone, especially who might have a physical disability, how we include them in those types of outdoor activities, because it can be not the simplest thing to do, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sally. Heard from a couple of folks. So Ramsey saying every day is a great day to be alive, but what do you do when you're stuck inside and your anxiety is so high? So that kind of hits the nail on the head for the experience of so many people these days, where for a combination of reasons, many people feel stuck inside. It's partly, it's that time of year for one thing, and it's also, we're living through a pandemic, and schedules are trickier than usual for all kinds of things that have to do with the typical reasons that we might get out more often than we do, whether that's travel restriction or being off of work, or if we're relying on other people to support us in some way, their lives are being affected right now, just like the rest of us. So that's a good thing. And as we talked about, just mentioned a little bit ago, Ramsey, uh, anyone that's feeling a higher level of anxiety today, at the very least should know that you're not alone, because it's kind of all over the place. And people who are, who typically don't consider themselves to really have a lot of anxiety that's a part of their everyday life are saying, yeah, well, now that's changed for me because of what's going on. And so and I think your question, it gets right to the heart of how powerful it can be to get a group of people together like this to talk about living well, and just to kind of share, like, well, what works for me, you know? And so that's a great thing. So Amy says, when I walk in the morning, I try to find something beautiful to take a picture of it. There's a great thing. Taking walks, looking for things that are, you know, picture worthy, you know, take a little photo op with something that you come across in nature. Deep breathing, you know, people mentioned that. Praying, that's come up a couple times now. And so, you know, celebrating these moments, finding things to celebrate, even if they seem like they're sort of ordinary, everyday kind of moments. But maybe today, with what we're all experiencing, some of those ordinary, everyday moments are even more important to celebrate, to kind of keep our perspective and to keep us feeling like, okay, we can get through this, and we've got something that we can look forward to tomorrow. So thank you for those. You know, if anybody has any suggestions that kind of go along with what about my anxiety? You know, does anyone have suggestions about that? Because I have a couple things I'd like to share with you that do have directly to do with that. But I know that I'll get to those. I just want to hear if anyone else has things that kind of, you know, work for you or people that you love and care about. How do we calm down? How do we calm that part of us down that's kind of saying, I'm getting ramped up right now. I'm getting a little anxious right now. I'm feeling scared. I'm feeling nervous.
I just went through that with MetLife and dealing with all the stuff on my own, being a self-advocate, but it's just getting off my medication, and what a difference, how better I feel. I just can't believe the doctor wanted me good every other day, but I was hallucinating. I was having nightmares. I don't have any of that right now, but I told Mom this morning, I feel great. I'm scared to go back on my medication, but I think it built up because I was doing everything myself with the insurance company. And I think I got so overwhelmed. My anxiety just took me over, and I didn't know where God was leading me, you know. It's a pretty scary world out there.
Yeah.
I don't want to go back to work, but I may have to. But I've been dealing with so much. But I want you to stay positive. But, you know, like this morning, it was nice to get out of my apartment for a half hour, just go to therapy and see other people, you know.
Yeah. One thing that helps a lot of people, including myself, is when we can get to so I'm gonna say this and just say, you know, you can choose to believe me if you want to, but you don't have to. I can't make you. But this is something where with practice, this actually becomes true. And probably some of you have already experienced this, and maybe some haven't. But it's important enough in terms of what I've experienced myself, and just in terms of knowing some of the research on this, and knowing a whole lot of people in my life that have embraced this and benefited by it. And there's a few things I'll mention along those lines, but one of them that I'm thinking about right now, based on just what we're talking about, is that every thought and every feeling that comes to us is temporary, and we don't have control over it. So we might have ways of controlling, you know, can I find some way to try to make myself a little happier right now? Or can I find some way to make myself feel calmer rather than kind of ramped up, yeah, we may have some strategies that we can kind of pull out of the pocket and do that. And some of them might be really super healthy for us, and some of them might just feel good, and they're not the greatest thing, but maybe they helped us feel better for a little while. But even if we take those things into account, we actually can't control when a feeling decides to kind of descend on us. Like a feeling comes to us and it's just, we didn't ask for it, it just came. It might have come because of how we reacted to something that somebody said about us or to us, or something that happened in our lives that we didn't have any control over. It's a feeling. So if you think about any feeling, just think about the things that come to mind, like I feel happy, I feel nervous, I feel jealous, I feel angry, I feel sad, I feel hopeful. All these different feelings, when they show up kind of like in our body, they're showing up like they're coming to us, and we didn't control that. And so one of the lessons is for us to not be too judgmental about them. It doesn't mean we don't have opinions about what this makes me feel like. We do. We'd much rather feel happy and relaxed than feel angry and upset and nervous and anxious. But they're sort of like visitors. There's a poet named Rumi who, if I had a link handy, I'd send it out. But there's a great poem of his that's called The House Guest. And it's about, and Rumi is spelled R-U-M-I. And if you Google Rumi house guest, it's all over the internet, you'll easily find it. But basically what he talks about is, guy who lived in the 13th century, is like our body, like myself, this thing that you can see on your screen is like a house that has these guests that come and visit. And some of these guests are like thoughts. They might be thoughts that make us happy. They might be thoughts that are like, ooh, I shouldn't think that way. That's a negative thought. But we didn't invite it. It came to us, like it just showed up. And part of this is learning how we can not be too judgmental about the thoughts and the feelings that come to us, because we didn't do anything to make them visit. And Rumi talks about their house guests. They may stay for a little while. Let them in. Just let in the guests. Even if there's somebody that you'd rather not see right now. I would rather not see you, depression. I would rather not see you, jealousy, but you're showing up right now. And so I'm just going to let you in. I'm not going to invite you to stay forever. I'm going to ask you to maybe just stay for a short time. But kind of like knowing that that's all part of the human experience. And so these range of emotions that some of us are feeling now in a heightened way because of the pandemic and because of, you name it, racial disparity, political, I don't even know what the next word should be, because I don't want to talk about politics right now, but the difficulty that our country is having with politics, family difficulties that many of us have, these are like cause these emotions and these thoughts and these feelings that come to us. And it's these ancient lessons that go back so many thousands of years ago that teach us these are all temporary. They're not going to stay. And we can decide that we're going to not be judgmental about them because we didn't ask for them in the first place. They just showed up. And so I might be experiencing the thought that says, you irritate me, or you make me happy, or I might be experiencing the feeling of joy or sadness or whatever it might be. But I'm experiencing those as they're not me. They're visitors. They're like separate from who I really am. And so that ability for us to separate ourselves from those thoughts and feelings is something that I'm just going to suggest is a great thing for all of us to practice in whatever way we can, because it actually helps improve our own well-being. And when we improve our own well-being, we help other people that are around us improve their well-being too. So there's one thought. Hope it wasn't too strange. I might sound like I'm on a different planet, but I'm actually on the same planet. It's just that I'm in a different state. Okay, I'm in Michigan.
We did post,
there we go.
Shannon posted it in
Shannon,
the
thanks.
chat. So
Yeah, I see
it's
that. Thanks,
there.
Shannon.
I think that is interesting though. I just listened to a podcast the other day about positive thinking and kind of like what you're saying, like, you know, these thoughts all come to you. And so that podcast was very much about how to turn those thoughts around too. Like, okay, let them in, but then is there another way to think about it? But I think it's interesting because it seems like in these times or, you know, just what's going on, it seems like there's a lot of negative gets in and not always the positive. So
Right.
maybe creating that positive, you know, from whatever the negative is, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I think that, you know, the problem for most of us that are accustomed to, you know, we think it's in our language. We talk about it, we even say it out loud repeatedly. Sometimes we say things like, I am so happy right now. Like, I am happy. I am happy. And like that, the way these great teachers would talk to us about that is that that's actually not accurate. Like that's kind of, you're sort of telling yourself a little lie when you say, I am happy, I am depressed, I am anxious, because we are not those feelings. Those are those visitors that happen to be showing up right now. And I don't want to be like picky about our language and how we have to change how we say that, because I say that as often as anybody else. I say like, whoa, man, am I ever bummed out about this happening today? Or, wow, I am super excited. The more accurate way to say it would be, the feeling of excitement is visiting me right now. The feeling of happiness is visiting me. The feeling of sadness is here. It's visiting. It's not me. It is separate from like who I am as a person. And the problem is if we get all wrapped up in, we call ourselves by these names of these feelings, and we say, I'm depressed, you know, I'm angry, I'm just an angry person, I'm angry, I'm angry, I'm angry. And the more we tell ourselves these things, the more it kind of can play out that way, and we actually become what we tell ourselves that we are, when we're actually not that in the first place. We're just someone who happens to be dealing with anger right now, and we might need some help to like figure out how to get around it. And help is there, and we can try to help each other find how to get that kind of help when we need it. But so it's yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to say about that. My sister listened to Joel Osteen, a Bible preacher. Okay, I've heard of Joel Osteen. I don't know who that person is, but I've heard that name. And yeah, thanks, Shannon, for posting the guest house. I love that. It's one of those things, it never gets old. And you think, man, that was like, what, 700 years ago? That's a long time ago. Yep. It's good stuff. Any other, just kind of checking in again, just to see, since I want to pause every now and then to make room for other people to chime in here. Any other thoughts on things that you have found that help you or someone you care about just feel better, calm down, have a greater sense of well-being?
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah. There's something I've been hearing a lot lately from people when we're having these kinds of discussions. It's come up a lot lately, and it's made me think I should do something about that myself. And that is when I talk about, well, what are some definitions for you? I might be with a group of people, and then what are, you know, when you hear the term self-care, what do you think of? And one of the things that seems to come up a lot is, I was going to start laughing when I say this. Not that it's funny, but it's funny to me because how often it comes up. Bubble baths. I mean, who doesn't love a good bubble bath? Like, there's nothing wrong with bubble. It's not that it's funny. I'm not making fun of it. I'm just saying it's funny to me how often it seems to come up. Like, people are like into, like, I need to do something that's going to help me feel better. I'm going to take a nice warm bubble bath. Good for you. I think that's a good idea. Diane says, just taking the time to listen to others and hear what they're saying.
I think that is funny when you think about those little things, because just like we think about, we're not going out a lot. So it seems like every time I go out now, whether it's to pick up the groceries or, the slight errand I might run, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go get that coffee, the coffee I like, because I'm
Yeah.
like, to me, that's self-care. Like, it's great to have this coffee at home, but it'd be really great to have a coffee out. And so every time I get in the car to like do a small errand, I'm like, oh, I could go get coffee.
Yeah.
And that in itself just will pick me up. And then sometimes I'll buy the coffee for the person behind me in the
There you
drive-through.
go. There you go.
But you're right about those small little things that might just be such a little pick me.
Yeah. And I think about the very, very small things that that turn out to not be that small, actually. Like, for example, and especially today when we're having to kind of deal with different ways of connecting to people because of the pandemic. And I think about something like, texting for those of us who have a phone and we can send a text. If you're with us right now and you don't have a way to text, maybe there's another way. Maybe it's email, maybe it's a phone call, whatever it might be, that we can do right now when we can't be in person with each other, or we can't maybe visit in person, sometimes someone that we want to see. But just like, I'll just use the texting example. Just the how easy it is, and it doesn't take any time at all. 15 seconds, 30 seconds, to send a text to someone who maybe you've been a little bit out of touch with. Maybe it's somebody maybe it's a coworker of yours. Maybe it's someone in your family. Maybe it's somebody that you have seen recently or that you've been in touch with, but you're just thinking, like, a thought about them comes to mind, like appreciating them or thinking, I wonder how they're doing. Or, just like the message that comes from you to someone else that basically all it needs to say is, I'm just thinking about you right now and I'm glad you're in my life, or I'm thinking about you and I appreciate what you do. And my life is better because of knowing you. Those simple things, and they're heartfelt. Like, I'm certainly not suggesting you send a message like that to someone that you really don't like very much. I mean, you could if you're trying to mend the fences, but you know what I mean? It's when it comes from like a real genuine place. And that, when a person receives a message like that, honestly, it can be the best thing that happened to somebody that day. Like your effort that took 15 seconds or a minute could be the best thing that happened to a person all day long. And it didn't cost any money. It didn't take any time. It just came from your heart. It's just kind of like a message of, I like you, I care about you. Or if it's someone you love, I love you and I care about you. Or I appreciate you. And that, again, I'm just, part of this is just my own personal, where I'm at in my life, but I'm just aware that now with what's happening in our world, those kinds of messages are really important. And I also think, and I also know there's research that backs this up, that we have some of these skills that can improve our own well-being and improve the well-being of other people. And as neuroscientist Richard Davidson I say here at UW-Madison, but at UW-Madison, because I'm not here right now. He says since science now can prove that we do have some of these skills to improve our well-being and the well-being of other people. And I'm in a minute, I'm just going to share a couple of more of these with you. He says we have responsibility to use those, like to actually to embrace them and to improve our well-being and to improve the well-being of people around us, because that, in his opinion, and he knows a thing or two about this and has done a ton of research, because that's one of the ways that we can increase our hopefulness about actually making our world a better place, making our communities a better place. Because what he says is, the way we're doing that now isn't working so well. You know, the amount of things that kind of go wrong in our world and in our communities seem to suggest we should find some better ways to maybe help each other feel better about life and about being with each other in this world together. So what Richard Davidson spends a lot of his time on in researching is about mindfulness. And mindfulness is a practice, which I'll just touch on briefly, that among other things teaches us some of what we've already been talking about, that teaches us that our true self is separate from our thoughts and our feelings, that we should try not to let our thoughts and our feelings become the definition of who we are, because they're not, they're just these visitors. With different types of mindfulness practice, the research, I mean, it's so compelling. It's all over the world, that there are benefits to these kinds of practices. And the benefits include things like physiological benefits, like lowering our blood pressure and lowering our pulse rate, helping boost our activation of our parasympathetic nervous system versus our sympathetic nervous system, which is the part of our nervous system that helps us feel, you know, where we're activating it, where it's the, I feel calm and I feel relaxed and I feel hopeful and I feel kind and I feel generous. That's the parasympathetic nervous system being activated. And we know that we can do things to activate that, which gets back to the question of anxiety. The sympathetic nervous system, when that's activated, that's the anxiety, the depression, the anger, the jealousy, the fight or flight. And so some of these practices are ways that if we do this just a little bit each day, the science says, it's very clear, the research says, we will improve our own well-being, and we can improve then the well-being of others that we come into contact with. And so in the little time we have left, we can't spend too much time on this, but just a couple of those briefly, just a little taste of it. One is, someone mentioned deep breathing. And there are so many different kinds of breathing practices, and you cannot go wrong if you do it however works for you. Just take a few minutes whenever you can. You can do this while you're just waking up in the morning. You can do it while you're falling asleep at night. You can do it while you're in a car. You can do it while you're sitting at a desk or at your table having a meal. Noticing, you can do it while you're walking. I do it. I just was doing this 2 hours ago when I went out for a run. I do this often when I go for a run, is paying attention. Like, just notice, right now I'm inhaling, right now I'm exhaling. It sounds so obvious. Like, of course we know that. We're breathing all the time. But since our breathing is basically our body's on autopilot, like, we don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to remind ourselves to breathe. We just do it. But what we don't often do is we don't pay full attention to it. And so what these practices basically do, and why they're so simple, in addition to being very helpful and beneficial, is that our breath is always with us. So wherever we are, outside, inside, at work, at home, in bed, at the table, at the desk, all we need to do is notice, I'm inhaling right now. Like, just being very present in the moment when you know you're breathing. I'm inhaling, I'm exhaling. To take that one step further, there's a practice where you lengthen the exhale. Inhale, many people do this by counting. So count to 4. And then double it when you exhale. Exhale to the count of 8. The research about that is, every time we exhale, we're activating that calmer part of our nervous system. And every time we inhale, we're activating that fight or flight, the nervous, the anxiety, the anger, just a little bit. You wouldn't notice it. It's not like every time you inhale, you're like, oh, I'm angry now because I'm inhaling. Or every time you exhale, you're like, oh, that exhale makes me feel very calm. But it's true. If you were hooked up to the right kind of instruments, it would show you this. And so this woman who was a researcher in Madison for a while, and I believe she's still at Stanford, Emily Seppala, has done this great amount of research on this, and it is so simple. And it's just simply, she guides people through this. But we can do it on our own. We can do it with like a breathing buddy. I know people who have like a breathing buddy. But it's simply just spend a few minutes noticing it. It sounds so, I get this. If any of you are thinking, seriously, like you want me to spend 5 minutes just focusing on like recognizing that I'm inhaling right now and then recognizing I'm exhaling. Yeah. You know why? Not because I think it's just silly, but because the science says it's actually really good for us. And I know it from firsthand experience, and I know it from a lot of anecdotal experience and a lot of research. By the way, somebody earlier said something about, I think someone asked if I had any handouts. I don't, but I'll try to. Yeah, Ramsey asked about that. Do you have any handouts? I don't really have any handouts right now, but let me just think about what there may be that would be helpful, and I'll see what I can
you
get
could
to.
always send it. You could always send it to me, and I can send out to people who might be
Okay,
interested.
sure.
But maybe
Yeah,
just
yeah.
some of even the different things you've talked about, the research, or people might find that interesting.
Yeah. Here's another type of a practice that's also really easy. So there's the breathing, there's the paying attention to the breath, there's just the literally simply the noticing. I am aware. I just quietly for a minute or two, just notice. Just think about your breathing. I know I'm breathing right now. I know I'm inhaling. I know I'm exhaling. Simply bringing your awareness to the fact that you are in fact breathing in that moment and noticing it and labeling it. And what I mean by that, because in our work, sometimes the word labels, we have, oh my God, labels are bad, labels are bad. It depends how we use the labels. Labeling our feelings. If I feel anxious right now, and I say to myself, oh, I'm aware that I'm feeling anxious. Simply labeling that, just simply saying, you can be like Rumi, and you can say, there's a house guest coming. Oh, the house guest is in my house right now. And it's called anxiousness or anxiety or nervousness or whatever. Or you can simply say, I'm aware that I feel anxious. I'm aware that I feel upset about something. The power of labeling that and saying, that's what that feeling is. You noticed it. You didn't say that's me. You said that's a thing that's visiting me for a temporary time. Just saying that actually takes some of the power away from that feeling, the power that feeling sometimes has over us, that makes us feel like, oh my God, I can't even get out of bed right now. Or, oh my gosh, I better be really careful, or I'm going to say something right now that I regret because I wasn't, careful about what came out of my mouth when I was feeling upset or angry. So just labeling it. So that's a really simple thing that any of us can do. And we can help other people do it. But another one I want to share with you is a type of practice that science says has some of the quickest results. And it's not like we're looking for any kind of a quick fix, but let's just say you agree for the moment with me that our world would benefit by having more empathy towards other people and towards ourselves. Let's just say for a minute that we agree on that. And we've only got a couple minutes left. And what I want to share with you right now is very quick and very easy. Let's just say we'd like to learn how to be more empathetic or empathic. I think both of those terms are correct. And we would like to be able to give people a break, to go easier on other people, to be kinder to other people, and to be kinder to ourselves. Here's a type of practice that works really well. And you know, another person you could look up on this is Sharon Salzberg. If you do a search for Sharon Salzberg, she's one of the greatest teachers about this type of practice, loving kindness meditation or compassion meditation. And she's got a lot of YouTube videos on this. But anyway, what you do is you just bring to mind, very briefly, you bring to mind 4 people. One of them is you. One of them is someone you care about. One of them is someone you feel neutral about. And one of them is someone who is very challenging to you. Not someone who's caused you great harm. I would not recommend going that far with this at this point, but someone who you find irritating, someone who's difficult for you to be around, or someone who's difficult for you to even acknowledge that they live on this earth. So maybe it's a public figure, maybe it's someone that you know. And what you do is you just one by one, you go through each of those 4 people: yourself, someone you care about, someone you feel neutral about, and someone you find very challenging. And when I was on my run today, I did this. And the person that was challenging for me on my run is an old friend of mine named Doug. He has been really irritating me lately with what he's posting on social media. And I find that we have this history, and I really like him in a lot of ways, but man, is he getting under my skin right now with some of the stuff he's doing. So Doug was the person that comes to mind when I get to that 4th person, the challenging one. But here's what you do. You repeat the same thing for all 4 of those people, including yourself. May I be safe. May I feel well. May I be happy. And may I be at peace. Neutral person. I'll make up a name. Ellen. May Ellen, person you care about, Ellen. May Ellen be safe. May Ellen feel well. May Ellen be happy today. May Ellen have peace in her life today. And you go through all 4 of those yourself. You don't have to do them in this order. This is the order that's coming to me right now. And what you do, if you do this over time, and the research is really interesting because a half an hour-ish a day of doing that over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, these research subjects are reporting, and the instruments that measure compassion and the way that science can measure your compassion are all saying you've increased your ability to be compassionate towards yourself, which we all need, and towards other people, which I think we all need too. So it's those 4 different entities: yourself, the person who you're close to, the person that you feel neutral about, and the person who's challenging for you. And that type of practice makes us as individuals feel better, our self-care, our well-being, and it makes us be able to treat other people with more compassion. So it's kind of like you can't really go wrong with this. Anyway, I'll wrap it up. Thank you all. I see some other messages. There's some great stuff in the chat.
Shannon's been posting lots of stuff on mindfulness and meditation. Some of the different people you talked about, we've tried to post that, so that's good.
Awesome.
I will say, Peter, I was having quite the morning. There was a lot going on for me. So I am excited that I got to take this hour with you to kind of refocus and release that stress. So I'm sure that others on the Zoom and also the Facebook feel that same thankfulness for you giving us, letting us take the time and just talking about this and ways to feel better. So we appreciate you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
It was a great presentation. Hopefully you'll continue to enjoy your time in Michigan.
Yes, thank you so much. Good to be with you all. And thanks, BPDD.